Hey guys, we're joined today by Chris Fogg, the Investor Relations Manager for Perpetua Resources, and we are at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference in Canada. And this company, really interesting story. Last year they were actually up 200% as a stock, and we'll be talking about multiple topics. One is antimony. First off, what is antimony as a metal? Why is it important in this world, and how China is actually currently monopolizing this metal, what they're doing to counter that and produce it in North America, more specifically in the US. We'll also talk about some potential job creations that they would have and how they would help the Idaho community, which is where the Antimony and Gold Project is, and for sure talk about the gold project you have, which is a very good sized project. So good to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and great to chat with you.
For sure. First off, I wanted to talk about antimony. What is it? What is it used for? And why is it so important in today's world?
Yeah, so antimony is really interesting. It's a metalloid. So it's listed as one of 50 critical minerals in the United States, given risk to supply chains and economic and national security resiliency. So there's no domestic mined source of it in the United States today. Basically, the market is dominated. The mined supply of it is dominated by China, Russia, and Tajikistan. And China also controls most of the processing for antimony. So when you think about it, they really have cornered that market. And so for us at Perpetua and the Stibnite Gold Project, we offer the only domestic reserve of antimony. You know, the market right now is mine constrained. So we think that our project, just for one factor, can really make a difference in being a reliable, responsible source of domestic antimony.
Right, so I want to clarify, in the United States right now, there's no antimony being processed or mined?
There's a little bit being processed. There's a company called US Antimony that does produce some antimony, but in terms of mined supply, there's none today. We have the only reserve of it.
Right, and what percentage of antimony would you be producing if you went into production?
So if you look at it on a quantitative bit, we will produce a lot of antimony, but it just so happens that we'll produce a lot of gold too.
Right.
So in terms of the economics of the project, gold sort of overshadows antimony. So if you split it up by revenue, it's about 95% gold and then about 5% antimony. So small in terms of financial impact, but we view antimony as the strategic enabler of the project because of its importance, the fact that the US doesn't have a domestic mine supply, China controls it. They've actually introduced export bans this year on antimony exports from China. So again, it highlights the importance of finding another source, and that's a role that Perpetua can play.
100%. I wanted to segment this into the actual gold project you have. How big is it? What's the size of it? And how important is that?
Absolutely. So we have a feasibility study, full feasibility study that was completed in 2020. That shows a 4.8 million ounce gold reserve, included inside a 6 million ounce M&I resource, and then an additional 1.2 million ounces of inferred gold ounces on top of that. So it's a large project, it's a great project, and then on the antimony side, we have about 148 pounds of proven and probable reserves.
Right. You recently announced a really good news under Joe Biden's presidency. It took you 8 years to get a specific permit by the US Forestry. Can you talk about that, the importance of it? Where is it going to bring your company, and how impactful is it for you?
It's absolutely huge, and our permitting team at Perpetua has done an incredible job. They've just had dogged pursuit of this for the last 8 years.
Yeah, 8 years is huge.
We originally submitted our plan long before I joined the company. Submitted our mine plan in 2016, and it took 8 years ultimately to reach the final record of decision. And why that's so important is the federal NEPA process effectively is the major federal authorization that you need. Now there's a whole lot of other ancillary permits, many of which we already have, a few others that we still need to wrap up in the first part of this year. But in terms of the NEPA federal process, it was a long time coming, and so happy to be in this position to finally have that out.
Right. And if your mind was to go into production or even just developing it more, advancing it, I know you'd have a really good impact on the Idaho community, which is where the project is. How responsive is the community to it, and what would you create in terms of jobs?
Yeah, again, it's something that I think Perpetua did really well from the outset, is engaging with the community, listening, informing them, hey, this is what we plan to do, and what concerns do you have, what questions do you have for us. It was that early engagement that really allowed us to connect with the public and have the start of building that trusting relationship. There's always going to be people that just don't want mining, and that's always going to be the case, but there's also community members that maybe just don't know a whole lot about mining. So that community engagement has been crucial. In terms of what we're doing, our team is really invested in the community. There's scholarship programs that we do. We set up a Stibnite Foundation so that our communities could be involved and could benefit from the project. So there's a lot of things that we're doing. We just published our 11th annual sustainability report last year. So we've been doing this from the start, and it's something that's really core and foundational to what Perpetua is.
Right. What are the 2025 milestones? What are the key things that you will really be working on in 2025, basically?
Yeah, so I mentioned the ancillary permits that we're working on. So in the first half of this year, we expect to have those wrapped up. The key ones remaining are the 404 water permit, and then there's 2 state permits, the state Idaho discharge permit and the cyanidation permit. So those we expect in the first half. We're also progressing project financing at the same time. And so the goal is to have both those work streams complete in the first half of the year so that we can then be in a position to start building the project.
Right. I think you had a potential financing of 1.8 billion with the Export-Import Bank of the United States. What does that entail, and what would you use those funds for, or the split would be?
Yeah, so we applied for a loan through a program through the U.S. Export-Import Bank. The program is called the Make More in America initiative, and under that, sort of a sub-program is called the China and Transformational Exports Program. So what's unique about this is the U.S. Export-Import Bank has traditionally provided financing for projects outside of the United States to be more competitive on a global scale. Under this new program, they're now funding projects here at home. Well, we're in Canada now, but in the United States to make them more competitive. So we received, after we did the short application, we received a letter of interest in April of 2024 that basically said the Export-Import Bank, based on our preliminary application, could provide debt financing up to $1.8 billion and up to a 15-year tenor. So that's huge because it gives us one option and then unlocks a lot of other opportunities. So we think there's still a formal application process that we need to complete. We'll do that early this year. But it gives us options and it gives us a lot of flexibility should those funds be available.
Right, so you're trying to open all your doors in terms of financing to make sure that when you're ready to go, you have the funds and you can go.
Absolutely.
So you were talking, what are the other financing options? Are you just going to rely on this, or is there other financing coming or other things?
Yeah, so we hired a group called Endeavor Financial out of London to support us on the debt side. So they're helping with the EXIM application, also running a parallel track of more traditional debt project financing, just so that we have all bases covered and all options available. And then on the sort of the non-debt side, we've engaged RBC to help us look at strategic opportunities. So we're evaluating literally everything as we move forward to make sure that we're doing things in the best possible way for our shareholders. We're very anti-dilution, as most are, but very, very focused on that. That's in our DNA at Perpetua. So we're looking at everything and looking at creative options to make sure that we're getting the best value for our shareholders.
Right. So for your shareholders, you've been creating value. For new people that might not know the story, that just learned about it, why is it a good point to enter in the stock right now? Why should they be interested?
Yeah, I think the fact that we just got the final record of decision after 8 years, that's a huge milestone, and it in many ways unlocks the path forward for the project. So to those that maybe have been waiting for the federal authorization, now's the time. I think there's tremendous upside in this project, both on the antimony side. We've seen antimony prices come up since those export bans were announced. Gold prices are at all-time highs.
Yeah.
So there's significant upside just from the non-project drivers, but then looking at upside just within the project as well. There's a lot that we're excited about.
Right, and last question for antimony, like who buys this? It's like companies in Canada or the US that would buy it to make defense materials or like energy. Like what exactly would they get it for?
The unique thing about antimony is it's used in so many different applications. A lot in just small amounts, but it touches everything from lead acid batteries. It's used as a flame retardant in clothing, brake pads. Sometimes it's used instead of lead as a solder. So it's used in semiconductors, wind turbines, solar panels. Nobody knows about it until now. The interesting thing is that we'd have to process the antimony anyway to then be able to process the gold. It just so happens now that it's in short supply and high demand.
Right. So it's a good add-on to the gold project.
Absolutely.
All right. Is there anything else you'd want to add before we close this interview? Any remarks to our audience that you want them to know?
No, I think just that we're after 8 long years, we're finally in a position to be able to move this project forward. Like I mentioned, a few other things on the ancillary permit front, and of course the project financing. But 2025 is shaping up to be a very, very exciting year for us. I guess the other thing that I would mention is just our team is sort of ramping up at the same pace as our project is. So we hired a VP of projects in August of 2023. We hired a new CEO, welcomed John Cherry as our new CEO in March of last year as we get ready for this next phase. And here we are at that next phase. So 2025 is looking really excited. So more to come. Stay tuned.
All right. And where can they find you? What's the ticker? What's the website?
Our ticker is PPTA. We trade on the TSX and NASDAQ, and our website is perpetuaresources.com. My contact information is on there. So be sure to visit our website and learn more.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris. That was a great interview.
Appreciate it.